Hey, what's up guys, it's Kate up here, and in this video I'm gonna give you guys a very straightforward path to become a UI and UX designer. And so recently I have a new student join my mentorship class, and she's been to a couple of design courses, and also like she hired design mentors and stuff, but she just don't really know like what kind of thing should I do now after learning all of this information. She just doesn't really have that clear path, right? And I just recommended a path for her, and that is something that I want to share with you guys as well, right? So like what kind of thing that you actually need to do to become a UI and UX designer. I have a lot of information on my channel too, right? But this is really the step-by-step guide. So eventually if you want to be a UI and UX designer, and hopefully after you finish all of these steps, right, I'm quite confident that you will be able to find a real design job and getting real clients and all this, like real stuff, right? Real talk. So no bullshit. Right, so there are only 6 steps. Before I start, right, I do want to say that this video may be for people that are actually doing design right now. So if you're a graphic designer, you want to step up your game and become a UI and UX designer. So this video probably for you, right? But if you're somebody that just really junior, right, like don't even know what design is, don't even know what the fundamentals, like the grid system and like design colors and stuff, right, typography, then I will recommend that you check out my other video that I talk about like the 7 steps guide to study to become a graphic designer. So I think that one I cover a lot more bases, like the fundamentals, and I have links to the video that you can learn the design software, learn the fundamentals and stuff like that, right? So this video is more for people that are already a designer but want to become a UI and UX designer. So there are only 7 steps, so I'm going to show it all in here, right? So to just kind of give you a brief, right? So the first one I'm going to talk about the improving UI design skill, and the second is how did you learn UX design, and then start designing some kind of projects, and then putting your project on your portfolio, and then start finding clients, so low paying client, and then eventually jump to high paying clients, right? So that is the game plan that I'm gonna cover in this video, right? So if you're excited, then let's get started. So the first one is improving your UI skill. So I know that you may be doing a lot of poster design, banner design, right? So but what is actually UI design, right? So UI design is basically just user interface design. I bet that you know it already. If you use a mobile app, right, then that is all the interface that you click on, right? Then that is bring you different pages, the button and the navigation bar and all this thing is UI design, right? UI components. So your job as a UI designer is basically designing those components so people can actually interact with the website or product or whatever you're working on, right? So that is your job. So what is the best way to learn about UI design, right? And I talk about it a lot of times as well. I think the best way to learn it is actually copying some other people doing the stuff that you're trying to do, right? So copying is the fastest way to learn UI design in my opinion, and just think about learning a language too, right? What is faster than actually talking with a native speaker and copying how they speak, right? I think that's the fastest way, and that is exactly the thing that I want you guys to go through as well. So step 1, go check out a lot of my video that I talk about copying, right? I have a video to talk about how to mimic a design, and then I have follow up with 2 other copying tasks also in the video, right, that you can check out, and those are the exercises that you want to take and finish that. So once you finish, right, I bet that you will have a pretty good understanding about creating UI components. So when do you use divide out the content, and also like when do you put stuff in a card, right? Like how can you divide a role? Because like all of those stuff that you've been like copying, right, that is exactly the patterns that you'll probably be using in your design file, and you eventually becoming a UI designer, right? So the copying exercise is great. But on top of that, right, if you finish all that and you want to learn more about, how can I better my UI design skill, right? And I do have another, UI design series on my YouTube channel that you can just check out all of those videos, right, where I talk about details in the grid system, right? How can you apply grid system to your design, and like, page layout, color and shadows and all this like details aspects of graphic design or UI UX design, right? So those videos you may want to check it out as well if you want to better your UI skill. But I think copying is the main exercise, main task that you want to finish at this level, and I bet that after you finish it, your design skill will be a lot better than what you are right now. So after you finish step 1, and then step 2 is getting to UX, right? So what is actually UX, right? How can you design UX screen right now? So UX is, from my personal opinion, right, I think everybody can kind of be a UX designer. So if you know like UX patterns, right, then you can already put together some kind of wireframes, and that is what my client has been kind of giving me to as well, right? Like if I talk to a new client, they may have like some kind of idea sketch out, right? So those are kind of UX as well, right? So user experience is basically everybody experience, right? Your experience is part of UX as well. And if I'm designing an app for you, right, then I have to keep thinking from your perspective, right? How would you be using this kind of app? What kind of pattern is familiar to you, right? So that you can learn to use my app easier. So this kind of like user pattern is something that kind of like you were just basically reusing a lot of existing patterns. But how can you get these components, right? Where is the component come from? So if you want to learn more about these like components, which I think that you will see everywhere on the website already, then you can go to a website called Material Design. So this website is pretty much like all of those components that you will ever find on a website or in an app, right? So this can go really, really detailed into, what that component actually do, right? So for example, app bar, and then they have a button here. So this kind of pattern, I'm pretty sure you've seen it. Usage, when should you use that, right? So this is more like it's from Google. So like thousands of apps are already using this kind of component library, right? So this is exactly like the study book, or like if you're ever thinking there's a book for UX, right? This is the book for you, right? Then they will just basically explaining when you use the component, when should you be using it, the do's, and then also the don'ts, right? When should you not be using this, right? So all of these kind of use cases for component library, then this is something that you want to go on and study, right? I don't say that, you have to study every single thing about this, because it is very huge, right? Like if you have to study like the entire book, it's going to take you forever. So, but I will just recommend that you go through it. And I believe that this is definitely seems very familiar to you as well, right? If you are, web user, right? If you're an app user, this is very familiar to you. Just one quick sample, right? When you think about, like a Facebook feed or Instagram feed, right? What is the position of that feed? So the first one is probably going to be a user profile image, and then your name, and then down below that, or maybe on the left, you have a date, and then down below that is the picture section, right? Video picture, the feed section, right? Down below the feed section, then what would you see? The comment sections, right? You can like the post, you can comment, you can whatever, right? So this is kind of like the user pattern that you already have in your mind, right? So if you're designing an app right now, like it has a feed function, right? Then what should you design? Probably something similar, right? If you put like the comment section about the image, then that will be breaking this kind of user behavior, right? And that will be very odd for your app. So you don't know what I mean, right? Like all of the UX is basically reusing existing components in a way that people can understand it and using it. So you rarely want to reinvent the wheel and create something like totally different that people don't really familiar with, where then they may have a very hard time to use it. So just keep always thinking about from a user perspective. If I'm using this app, then what would I expect, right? As a user, I would like to see X and S, right? Then you can validate it with this kind of clients. I'm not saying that this is all about UX. I'm pretty sure that UX can be a lot more specific. If you're working with a specific group of people, then you may have to really work with them to understand how they use the app and then provide something very unique for that situations, right? But this is all about, the fundamentals about UX, right? Understanding the components and then applying this component in your next projects, right? So Google Material Design, you have all the components that you can ever think of to apply to your UX design kind of work, right? So that is that. And then now if you finish like step 1, UI skill and then UX skill, what can you do next, right? So next is, don't waste your time in doing nothing, right? Like next is actually taking on this knowledge and applying to the actual work. And I've been saying it so many times as well, right? Just don't take on fake project, right? Don't work on fake project. Don't work on things that, like imaginary, right? So one example is, when I talk to my students, right, her previous mentor gave her a design task, which is, let's say, for example, like Google right now, Uber right now has the Uber group order feature, right? So you can order as a group, but then like the hypothesis is that like people want to split the bill when they all order by the group, right? So how can you create that feature to split the bill? But my challenge is, do people actually want to split the bill, right? So when you create a hypothesis exercise like that, you don't know if that is a real project that you're solving, right? And eventually when you're presenting this kind of idea to your potential employer, they will ask you the same thing as well, right? Where do you get that idea? And then you're like, no, this is not tested. I don't even know if people want this, right? Then your whole project is kind of at a very like shaky ground, right? So don't design fake project, right? Like design something that people actually has a need for, people actually using. So then whatever you design has a better solid ground, right? So where can you actually find real projects? And now I have some good news for you, right? Like I have done countless projects before, right? So any of these projects that I recommend you do, like this kind of design spec you can see on my screen right now, like this kind of design spec is actually the spec that I get from my previous project, right? So I have done it before. I have finished all of these projects, right? So you can find some of this kind of stuff on my portfolio as well. But I'm just going to put it out here because it's very old. I don't think that, people care about you designing for them anyways. So this is very old, right? So part of your job as a designer too is to understand like the comprehensive skill, right? Like how to digest just a Word document like that and then design the screen actually for it, right? So you can sketch out all of those components that you learn in the UX training, right? You can sketch it out on the paper and then designing the UI, right? Like you can do whatever you want with it. Right, so for example, for this one, right? It's a mobile application. Then you have a couple of screens, right? You have like, the sign-in screen, the how you work screens, and then the setup screens, home screens, stat screens, and all this different screens, right? So how can you put your design on top of that, right? How can you just take this word and translate it into actual functioning products, right? So again, like this task, just don't go too crazy with this because you're not actually working with the client, but I want you to be able to understand the task and then create some UI components for it, right? You want to create a screen that is sort of like, what you have been reading, learning, or whatever, right? So you want to create some kind of screens like that and use these screens, put it on your portfolio, right? So again, don't have to be going too crazy. You can't really ask any questions. So that's one thing that sucks about this because you're not actually working with the client. But just use your imagination, right? If you don't understand. So that is the first one. And the second one, I have like some of the tasks, right? So this one is another one that come from some of the clients. So they have this app right now. They don't really like the design of it. They want to improve it. So how do you actually improve that, right? They have some case study story. And then another one is called Wiggle. Wiggle is a finance app that can help you to understand your company health in terms of finances. And then they have like, let's say, they want to have 4 charts on the dashboard screens, right? So now you learn about grid system, right? So from my UI design courses, then or UI design video, then you know how to put in like how to use grid system to define your charts, right? So this is the time that you put whatever you learn into practice, right? So this one as well is another travel app. So it's a landing page of a travel app. They have some section that they want to put on the websites, right? Then how do you do this, right? Like they have an example website that they want to kind of shadow copy, right? So this is another one for travel website. And then this one I think is pretty interesting. It's got a company called Maxer. You can actually read a bit more about the backgrounds, right? Why do I want to create Maxer to become the leader sport kind of platform, right? So Maxer is another pretty interesting one that I think you can read through it and just try to work on it, right? They have different pages, like homepage, they have like call to action section, and then the leaderboard section, feed section, news section. And then this is what I talked about, right? Like my client provided this to me, and of course, he's not a UX designer, right? But he was able to put in some kind of mock-up like that. So you know what I mean, right? Everybody can kind of be a UX designer, but your job is not to follow it directly. Your job is to digest this information provided by the client and create something unique to your style, to your understanding, right? So this kind of project, I would say create something for it, right? Components. You don't have to have a full project, right? Like this is not an entirely 100% project, but you can create that and then put it on your portfolio. And so that's that, right? That's step 3. And this is probably going to take you some time to create these projects, right? You don't have to, again, right? Just put in shots. Doesn't have to be extremely detailed, but you want to have something that you can show people, hey, this is the UI skill that I have, that is UX understanding that I have, and then move on to the next step. So the next step is create a portfolio, right? So portfolio part, don't spend too much time on it, right? Like I don't want you to create your entire portfolio on a website, design it, code it out. It's like too much work. Right, so my recommendation is just go on Behance, just go on Dribbble and put your work on the website, right? So you can show people your work. So this is what my kind of a portfolio look like, right? So people can go through my work and then they can see what I do, right? Like literally right now when I go to interview, right, I just show them this Dribbble account, right? Then they can go through all of these stuff and see my work. And I think that's great, right? You just have to see some stuff, right? So Dribbble is perfect for that, I think, just in my opinion, right? So again, throw your work up on Dribbble and make sure that every single work you throw on Dribbble, those should be the work that is at a similar, closer quality to the stuff that you learn in step 1, right, which is the UI design. So remember, you have practice a lot of different design kind of copying exercise, right? So compare your work to those kind of UI stuff right now and see how it looks like, right? If it doesn't look anything good, then you know that you're not ready. Make sure that your work is the quality, similar quality to the stuff that you copy, right? So again, if you don't know, go back to the copying exercise, compare the stuff that you do. So put in some good work on your portfolio, and that is just that, right? Step 4, put on your work that you've done in step 3 on your portfolio. And then step 5, what are you going to do with step 5 right now? So you have your portfolio, you have your skill ready. What the heck are you going to do, right? Step 5 is to actually go out and find work. And that is, your goal, right? Finding work, working with clients. But the thing is right now, right? Like when you don't have any work experience, it's extremely hard for you to find good paying clients. And your goal right now is not to get paid, like to reach off your whatever you have right now, right? Your goal is to just find real client to work with. So doesn't matter what they pay you, right? They can pay you like $100, $200, they can pay you nothing. So your goal is not to make money at this stage, but to work with real people, right, as practice. So one good thing is to do it is to go on Dribbble. But this job board, you actually have to be a Dribbble member to access that, right? Like this is great, I think. Like you can find a lot of cheap clients, again, right? Don't worry about the money. Like they pay $50 for a product design. Like it doesn't make any sense at all, right? Like they don't have money. But the thing is, right? Like you want to work with interesting client, and if the type of work that you are very interested in, right? Then I want to kind of take it, right? So for example, like you see, I don't know, like this one looks interesting, right? Latino Switch camera app, right? Like what kind of camera app are you building? So you can like message that person, and then just ask them about the project and just tell them that, like right now, I know that like I'm pretty junior, so I'm not necessarily looking for a high paying kind of salary or job or whatever, right? I just want to work with real people and understand real issues and help them to solve problem in my best ability, and then helping your business grow. So if you want to work with me, I'll be grateful, right? So message a couple of people like that. They're probably not looking for a very because they don't have the budget, right? So it will be a lot easier for you to actually get the job, like working with these people. So again, like work on a couple of projects with this kind of clients, right? They have like a bunch here. You can see Dribbble has a bunch of cheap clients on here, right? So just work with them and then build your portfolio that way. So I would say when you're working with these people, just slowly to make sure, again, right? Make sure the work that you do is at the quality that you've been copying, right? The best designer. I'm gonna also have a link down below, like my, opinion, what is best design, right? So that video you may want to check out as well. So work with these people. A couple of project is great, like 3 or 4. Replace all of your fake, like previous project with this kind of projects, right? So after you work with them, spend a couple of months working with people, and then eventually you are able to have a real portfolio, and your portfolio is basically your weapons, right? Without weapons, you can't really find a job. So your portfolio is your armor, weapons, whatever you call it, right? You get to have that. Once you have it, you can find real high-paying clients. So that is the last step, right? Last step, I know this video is long, but this is the last step. Last step, finding high-paying clients. So how can you find high-paying clients? High-paying client, again, you can go back to Dribbble. You see that they have a budget section here, right? super cheap session, if you feel like, I'm worth a lot more than $50, are you kidding me? Right? Then you can go on like a 1K, 10K, 20K, right? Then you can see that some of the people are actually paying quite a bit, right? So 20K to 50K, I don't know, like 20K, 50K, right? Like if you think that you're worth, you can step up your game that way. Or if you say that I want to find a real job, right? Like then go to Working Not Working. You can find a real job from Working Not Working, right? Like you can see that they have a lot of hiring right now, like freelance job, full-time job, whatever you want to apply for, right? And then also Angelus is another pretty good way for you to find, high-paying clients. I would say, like you can see that some of these jobs are paying 120K to 160K, right? So that's quite a lot of money, but you're probably not going to get that with like 0 years experience. I'll say realistically, you probably can get a job for like, 50K to 100K per start if you have like a couple of good projects in your portfolio. So that is, what I would like to go with, right? So aim for like 50K to 100K at the start, and that will be great for you. So that is kind of all of my steps, right? Like if you go through from step 1 to step 6, then I'm pretty confident if you follow exactly what I say, you'll be able to get a pretty good job. Even if you're not a good job, right, you'll be able to get some really good clients if that is what you're looking for, right? So that's all for now. If you have any questions, feel free to tell me in the comment section down below. I'm happy to answer your question there. And also, like if you just want to follow what's been up to me, right, then check out my social media links down below as well. Follow those. And yeah, that's pretty much it. I will catch up with you guys. Oh, definitely like the video and subscribe as well. And I'll catch you guys in the next one. Cheers.